Hey there, we're going to do a black, white, and silver tray today. I'm going to try to make it super pretty. We'll just see how it goes. 13 inch. I'm going to try to fill it almost pretty much to the top, but we're going to really depend on the other side to be our pretty design. So I'm going to mix 26 ounces of resin. B goes in first, 13 ounces of B, and then 13 ounces of A. B is thinner, it goes in first, then B. Well, it'll mix better if you put B first, A into B. A is thicker like corn syrup, so easier to mix. So I have a 32 ounce mixing container and it's marked. And I even go between the marks with my own Sharpie and mark in between for those places that don't have the ounces marked the way I want them marked. Because mine it goes in 4, 8, 12, 16, 20, 24. But because I mixed 26, I'm kind of going in between marks. So I just make my own marks at the halfway point. So I'm going to mix this for 6 minutes. I wanted to show you. Always wear gloves, have a slightly open window, ventilation. I use a ceiling fan on low, a full face mask, or at least a mask that goes over your nose and mouth. I wear like goggles or glasses, and you always want to be safe because there's little micro bubbles that float up that you don't even see, that kind of stuff. I wanted to show you when you're mixing, you do not have to go fast. You just need to go consistently back, forth, around the edges. Try to keep your stick in the mixing container as much as possible. The more you lift out and put back in, the more air bubbles you introduce. You do not have to do this fast. It's not a race. You just need to mix consistently, and it's going to start cloudy and it will clear up at the end. So I'm going to mix this off camera and then I'll show you at what 6 minutes it looks like. Okay, my timer just went off for 6 minutes, so I hit stop. Now I'm going to switch to stopwatch and hit start. And we're going to be paying attention to the time. I have a beautiful, huge counterculture mat, silicone mat, but I have this covered with plastic, and I have my mold on top of the plastic. You just want to make sure it's nice and flat. If you need to clean it for any reason, use alcohol and do not use water or anything like that. You don't want to introduce any moisture to your mold or into your resin. Resin does not like any form of moisture. So that's the first little tip. This is going to be black, white, and silver. So I have 5 ounce cups for the black and white and a 3 ounce cup for the silver, even though I'm not going to mix nearly that much of most of it. So I'm going to go ahead and pour, I would say, maybe an ounce. I don't even want half of this cup for the silver. I just want a little bit, not a lot. Okay, so then the white, I want maybe 3.5 to 4 ounces. That might be the black there. That's about 4 ounces. And maybe go a little less on the white. Actually, that's almost about the same amount. And I can drip over this because I'm going to put clear into this mold, and I'm just thinking, I really want more black than white, so I'm just going to add a little bit into the black cup. That leaves me about 3 ounces, 3.5 ounces, and 4-ish for the black, and an ounce. I'm not even actually going to, well, let me just go ahead and pour this out. Again, this is a 13-inch mold. And it probably holds 32 ounces or so of resin. So it may not be filled up all the way to the max, but that's okay. We're pretty close. We're going to demold it when it's cured, give it a day or so, and then top coat it to put our knobs or handles into. We don't want it like going over the brim, just because you got to add these colors into here. Now, another technique that you can do is drop alcohol inks on the surface, but when you drop white or silver onto the surface of resin, it just kind of stays on top. The white kind of disperses, kind of weird, and the silver just kind of hangs around on the top. I'm going to turn my cup over on my silicone mat and just let it drain till it's cured. I'm going to go ahead and take my mixing stick, wipe it off with a dry paper towel, put it to the side, and just let it cure, and I can use it again next time. Okay, I've got things I've dropped into here that I can see automatically. A dog hair. I have a Sheltie, and his hair is long and very fine. Let's just go ahead and pop any bubbles kind of quick. I can tell I'm close to the top of the mold. I can just tell by looking at it. But I think I won't have, I'm not going to probably use all of any of those. You can put your, I keep this around here just so I don't get a lot of resin on my torch. You can put on low and pop those bubbles around the edge if you use low heat. So I'm just going to let this sit. I have some silver and gold. I have some silver and black glitter. I'm going to put it in the middle. I'm not even going to put all of it first. I'm just going to put a little bit and press it down, let it hopefully sink. I'm going to push this off to this side a little bit, and I'm going to bring these over here. I don't want to get mica powder into my clear, so that's why I'm doing this over to the side. I have Hi-Yo Silver, which is by Etsy Funshine Color Shop. I'm actually going to just take a popsicle stick, put a little bit on the tip, sprinkle that in. I've got some silver mixed. This is by Ranger. You can use any. Put, say, 4 drops into that. And that's just it doesn't have to be an exact amount. I love to see my tray and silicone mold and virtually no bubbles. That means I did a really good job on mixing the resin and not introducing a bunch of bubbles into it. So I'm proud of myself on that one. Okay, so the bigger cup with more resin in it, I'm going to use black pearl beaver dust. And then for the white, I'm going to use white beaver dust. So I'm going to use my little spoon here that is probably about the size of my finger. And I'm going to put a nice healthy dose into the white. Wipe my spoon. I don't even need to wipe my spoon because it's not going to change the color of my black. And I'm going to put a healthy spoonful into this, maybe a second one that's just about half full. Okay, so into the white, I'm going to use Cast and Craft opaque pigment. This is a new bottle. Sometimes you have to poke the hole. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and then usually one will just drop off, so that's about 10. I always wipe off the tip just to keep my bottle clean, and it keeps from running down in the lid and making your bottle all sticky and tacky. Okay, now white Pinata alcohol ink. I'm going to do 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Actually 6 went in, and that's okay. So let's stir that one up first, and just I'm going to move it away because that mica just goes everywhere if you're not careful. That's why you're wearing a mask. That's why you should too, because the mica dust floats up, little mini micro bubbles from your resin while you're mixing and stirring. It's just smart to be safe. Once it's mixed, I can bring it back. I've got some shimmer, which looks good, and I can let it drip down and look through it, and it's got a little transparency, but it's mostly opaque. That's what I'd like, so that's good. So now the black, I want to add 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 drops of alcohol ink. That's Pinata. Going to carefully start that mixture before moving it near the camera because of the mica powder. And that looks really good right where it is too. I haven't even got it mixed fully, but it's looking good. So the technique that I like to do is to drop alcohol ink on the surface and then pipe in a white on top of it. But like I said, the silver has a tendency to want to float around on the top. So we're going to do it this way and just kind of see what happens. It's got a little tiny transparency, but mostly black pearl looking, which is what I want. And we're just going to actually pour from the cups. We're not going to use piping bags. You can if you want more precision. You don't have to have precision necessarily for this technique that we're doing today. Getting a paper towel ready, but I'll wipe my skewer on when I'm making a design. And we're at 15 minutes, so it's a little bit early to start doing anything. You can feel the resin starting to warm, so that means it's getting to the point where it's almost ready to use. If you put it in too quickly, it'll kind of disperse out and you won't have as much control over it. So that's why we're waiting till a certain time frame. So I want this to mostly feel black with a little white and then a tiny bit of silver. That's what I'm aiming for. Now if you felt your cup and it felt like hot, that means you need to go ahead and use it right away. If you wait too long, it will start to set up on you, and that's kind of like a flash cure, and then by the time you put it into the resin, this might be okay, but if it's hot in the cup, it means it's turning to plastic or it's turning to hard resin, and by the time you pour it into your resin here, it's not going to move for you. It's going to just lay wherever you pour it. It'll almost be stringy, and it'll almost be like a plastic thread that you're pouring into your resin. I've done it multiple times. You learn from your past mistakes, so just beware of that. I'll sometimes give a little shot into my cups to burst some bubbles, but do not put a big flame in there. You don't want to do that. Okay, we're at 21 minutes. I'm filling my cup, and it still feels warm but not hot. I'm going to give it one last stir. The way I'm going to do is I'm going to just make a little spout by squeezing the cup, and that'll be my little pouring spout. And typically I would go in a pretty tight, you can do rings or you can just go in a spiral. It pretty much has the same effect. There's not much of a difference. But I would go in rings and then, kind of go out and do it that way. And that's not what I'm going to do, but I'm going to do more open rings. I don't want to make them real tight and lots and lots and lots of them, because then you have a very repetitive pattern, and I don't want it to look like just line after line after line. So I'm going to try to kind of spread it out a bit and not make it super close. So I'm right at 23 minutes, and there's a lot in this cup. So I tell you what, I'm going to actually, because it's so full, I'm going to pour out some of it into this little cup so I can have more control over holding this bigger cup. So I'm going to start near the center. Try to keep the spacing about the same. I kind of messed up. Sometimes when you let it trickle out, it'll do that little kind of roping looking pattern, and that's okay too. It can be kind of jiggity. That'll all pretty much change once it really starts curing. When resin cures, it will move towards the center. Anytime that you're doing resin, no matter the shape or whatever, it's going to move towards the center as it cures. I'm going to thicken up that line there. Go back here, thicken that up a bit. I'm going to add a little bit here. I'm trying to do it right on the line so that I don't have multiple lines of black. So I may not even need, I'm going to put the rest into here though, but I may not need it. I'm going to thicken this one here up on the outer edge. So it's really wide here in the middle, and I got tighter, so that's okay, I think. Okay, so now I want the white. It's pretty full cut, but I think I can control it. So I'm just going beside the black, staying in between. So again, if you do it where it kind of trickles out, it does that, it's kind of like when you let less pour out, it does that little ropey kind of effect, which is kind of cool. If you pour it out thicker, it'll come out more of a solid line. So if you ease up, then it goes back to that ropey kind of look. Okay. If I'm going to pick my cup up, I try to put my finger under it in order to control it. So we're now at 26 minutes, okay? So now I'm going to add the silver just kind of in between the black and the white. I don't want a lot, so I'm just kind of letting it go in a thin line. Okay, so right here, I think I'm going to add another line because there's a little bit of a spread there. I'm just going to add a little bit of silver and then kind of just taper it off to nothing right there. And let's see. I'm going to go back here and pour a little bit more black. Don't want it super heavy or thick because then it'll definitely drop to the bottom and you'll get little puddles, which it may already be doing. I'm not real sure. I can't really tell. A little black line right in that gap right there and taper it off just to fill in that one little area. Okay, so I'm going to heat this. And when you heat it, as you can see, it kind of helps it start kind of moving inwards because everything always goes to the center when it's curing with the resin process. I do have a little bit of resin left over of all the colors, and that's okay. I don't have to use it all. And I'm going to take my skewer. Now I could come in and do 4 and then 8, and so it's almost going to be like that would be like a petal shape. I'm going to switch this up, I think. And I'm going to kind of go in and out. And try to grab that black that's in the center. So here I didn't go quite far enough in. So I'm kind of retracing my and I'm going to swirl this a bit just to get that to do something in the middle. Okay, and now I'm going to just basically the outer lines. So this is kind of in between what would look like flower petals. It's just a random pattern. If you have any drips that when you pull your stick up that it goes somewhere, then you can also adjust those as well. You can also drag your stick just to help create little patterns if you want to. Like I said, it's going to move and change as it cures. And I can see underneath, because this is really thick resin, it's like 1/4 of an inch to maybe no more than a 1/2 inch, definitely more than 1/4 inch. I'm just trying to decide if I want to do anything else. I'm not touching the bottom of the mold. I'm just softly dragging. I may leave this just like it is the way around out on this part here. But I can see areas where the black is dropped down and the white is dropped down, so I might have some blobs. I'm not sure because I did use a lot. When I poured it into the mold, I did use a lot. So that part we'll just kind of have to wait and see. So this is like an open area that doesn't look like the rest. Okay, so if I had put this in, if I had put the colors in at earlier, it would have done this really fast and it would all kind of merge together, and it's already kind of doing that, but if I'd have waited longer, it would have stayed more separated. So I may have jumped the gun just slightly on it. I'm going to spritz it with alcohol, which also pops any surface bubbles, but it looks pretty bubble free. There's several things you can use. You can use like a deli cover, plastic cover. You can use a food net. So, you know, whatever you have around, I like to be able to see it through, so I like to use something transparent. So I'm covering it with the deli tray. And then I'm going to let it fully cure and remove it from the mold. Then we're going to turn it over, put knobs or handles, and then put a flood coat on it. So I'll be back. Here we go. So totally different. I like this side better. There's an interesting look though. But I'm going to go with this side. So I'm going to let it cure for 24 hours and then I'm going to do a flood coat and put knobs into it. Okay, I'm going to put a top coat on this. This was the top and not the bottom. I decided not to use the bottom, which to me has too much of a pattern. So, I've got a 12-ounce cup and I'm going to do 10 ounces. 5-ounce cup, fill it to the top. I'm going to use fast set, which sets up in about an hour. And I can touch it in 2 hours and everything. So, I've got some crystal knobs that just have a black bottom, and that's what I'm going to use. I want it to just blend into the piece. I had some that have like brushed nickel or whatever, but they're way bigger. You can see the brushed nickel inside, and I thought it was overbearing for the piece. So I'm just going to use the crystal with the black and just let it kind of blend in. So fast set. This is not one that you would use if you wanted to create effects. I use it for top coats only, or if you just want straight color and the piece and then do something pretty on top or whatever. It's great for just straight color, for curing quickly, but not for special effects. So So B first, I'm going to fill up the 5-ounce cup. It's a blue label. They also have a turbo, which do not get because you will probably regret it. It's made to set up even quicker, and you don't have hardly any time at all to work with it. I just do not recommend it. It heats quickly. It's just, this heats up quickly, but the turbo, from what I've heard, is super fast, and I'm not going to use it for any projects ever. But the fast set is great for top coating. It's UV resistant too. Now the A is thicker. It's more like corn syrup. A goes into B always. Just makes for easier mixing. You always want a little spare room in your cup to mix. You get it to the brim and then you're not going to be able to stir it. This one especially will have more bubbles, and it has an odor. So I highly, highly recommend using a mask, goggles, or eyewear. I'm not planning on this going over the edge of my piece, but if you did, the best thing to use would be the liquid latex, which is like a face mask thing for like Halloween and all. You just paint it on the back and it dries clear, and it's almost like rubber cement. And then you would elevate your piece so that if it dripped, it would, go onto the liquid latex. Then you just peel it off the back. I've gotten pretty good at just doing the top coat where it doesn't go over the edges, and I'm hoping I can do that this time too. So I'm going to mix for 6 minutes and I'll be back. Okay, it's been 6 minutes. I'm going to hit my stopwatch and hit start. Even though we don't have to time this, I want to make sure that I'm done with everything within about 10 minutes. So it's been mixed 6 minutes, and it's been about 2 minutes since I mixed it, and the cup is very, very slightly warm, not warm, but it's already starting to do its thing, and it's much thicker than artist resin medium viscosity, especially when you're beginning to stir it. So after you've mixed it and it's been mixed together for 6 minutes, then it becomes more liquidy, but then it's going to set up pretty quickly within 10 to 15 minutes. So I'm going to give myself just a couple of more minutes, and then I'll put it on here and give it a nice good coat, and then set my knobs into it. And you want to make sure when you're putting your knobs in that you don't have anything on your gloves too. So make sure to have a baby wipe, alcohol around. I've got a beat up little silicone brush, and that's what I use to spread it. Some people use gloved hands, but I can control it with this to the edges. And I can also turn, and that works out really well for a round shape like this. So this one's about ready to throw away. It's just so beat up and almost crunchy. I've peeled off resin multiple times, but it's eaten up the corners and everything. So it's been 3 minutes, so now 9 minutes total since it's been mixed. Well, 9 minutes from the time it got put together, A and B. 3 minutes from the time I mixed it. So I'm going to go ahead and pour into the center. And I'm not going to pour the whole cup. I'm just going to go maybe over halfway. I can always add more. You can also pop bubbles. And then I just take my silicone brush and I bring it to the edge, but not over the edge. it really starts to thicken. It's been 5 minutes. It starts to thicken up, and you can almost see divots sometime. So you just have to make sure that you get it nice and even. And the reason I'm doing it in front of me is with my lighting, I can see exactly where the edge of the resin is as I'm pulling it with my silicone brush. So it's good lighting for me to know exactly how far to pull that resin out to. And I've got half a cup of resin here. So there's a divot right there. I'm going to just get a little resin, drop it down. My cup is getting hot, so that means it's probably going to flash cure here very shortly. And it's becoming stringy on my silicone brush. So I'm just looking for any areas, but it's turning hard in the cup right now. And it's made of string, so I cannot use that anymore. I've got to watch that too, because if that starts to heat up, it can smoke and cause a fire and everything. Okay, so it's been almost 8 minutes, and I'm going to set my knobs in. My cup is melting. It is melting. I'm going to put it in a plastic container, and it's smoking too. Plastic on my thing too. My flame. Okay, so I want to set my knobs. What I like to do is I'm going to make sure that I don't have anything on my fingers. I'm going to take my gloves off. Is to just press and kind of shift it back and forth. And that releases any bubbles underneath. And it kind of makes a nice firm bond. So I just do this for about a minute or so. I'll see little bubbles that are popping up around the edge of the knob. So just getting that taken care of, because this does set up so fast. Once you see that, it is melting and smoking. I'm going to have to take this outside. I'm just making sure these are not shifting. Sometimes they will shift on you. I'm going to cover it. I'll come back in an hour or so and it will be set up. Okay, it's been several hours. The piece is cured. Nice glassy finish. The knobs are intact. The last thing I'm going to do is add the liquid chrome. This is the best silver out there on the market. It's oil-based. And I just press down a few times to get it going, to make sure it's going. I'm going to go around the edge just a little bit on the top. Then I'll turn it on its side and go around the whole edge. When it dries, it turns into what looks like chrome. It is the best looking silver chrome chrome out there in the market for sure. It's oil-based, but if you use the 91% alcohol, it will get it off your skin, and you don't have to use paint thinner. It's great. If you can get it off when it's wet, you can use the alcohol, but after that, you have to use the paint thinner, but it does work on skin. So I'll show this outside in the daylight when it's fully dried and cured, and I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you learned something, that even if you end up with a piece that you're not crazy about, you can still kind of play with it, and sometimes magical things happen, and this was not what I envisioned, but I think it's lovely, and so it will be one of the options that I give someone as a gift, a wedding gift, because I created about 50 coasters for her wedding party, and I wanted to give her something as well as a gift from me. Trying to do something, I heard she's more of a minimalist with colors. Y'all might have heard of her. Her name is Kathleen Osmore. So it's been a blast to share this with you, and I'll see you on the next video. Love you all. Bye-bye.